everybody. Welcome back to Phyto Revival, the podcast, where wisdom is always steeping, laughter is our favorite medicine, and our lived experiences are what root us in our humanity. And I'm your host, Desiree Haley. So a psychiatrist recently told me something that kind of stopped me in my tracks and honestly surprised me. He said that my life would probably look way different if it weren't for my intelligence. Now, before we go any farther, I just want to tell you this podcast isn't about IQ scores or being gifted or even academic achievements. It's about something much deeper. Because when he said it, I felt an emotion that I wasn't expecting. I felt seen, not because someone was complimenting me, not because someone with a PhD thought I was smart, but because for a brief moment, someone looked beyond the outcome and acknowledged the effort. Most people see the finished product. They see the business. They see the degree. They see the family. They see the accomplishments. They see the version of you that survived. What they don't see is what it took to get there. They don't see the parts of you that got lost on the way. They don't see the sacrifices, the compromises, the tears, the version of yourself you had to leave behind just to survive, the countless moments when quitting would have made perfect sense. And it made me wonder how many of us are walking around feeling unseen. Not because people don't care, but because they're looking at the mask, the shell, the final outcome, rather than the strength that got us there. Think about the strongest person you know. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's you. But how often do we look at strong people and we assume that strength came naturally? How often do we assume that because someone is capable, things must be easy for them? I've noticed something interesting throughout my life. The things people praise me for are rarely the things that cost me the most. People compliment confidence, but they don't see the self-doubt. People admire knowledge, but they don't see the years spent studying and making mistakes, desperately trying to understand things. People admire resilience, but they don't see the wounds and heartaches that made resilience necessary. It's like complimenting a runner on how fast they move without realize that they're being chased by somebody that nobody else sees. For many years, I thought my intelligence was something I had to prove. I believed I needed to be valuable to deserve space. I believed that if I could be useful enough, knowledgeable enough, capable enough, then I would be worthy of acceptance. Intelligence became more than a trait. It became a tool. It became my survival tool, a way to make sense of chaos, a way to solve problems before they became disasters, and a way to navigate situations that felt bigger than me. And maybe this is true for many of us. Maybe what people call strengths started out as survival strategies, such as intelligence, humor, independence, work ethic, professionalism, toughness, hypervigilance, and even people-pleasing. The tragedy is that people often mistake painful adaptations for effortless skill. They see the person who can handle anything and assume they haven't suffered. They see a person who always has answers and assume that they don't struggle. They see a person holding everyone else together and assume that they are okay. But some of the strongest people I have ever met are fighting invisible battles and carrying invisible scars. The veteran who still goes in fight or flight mode when the sound of fireworks. The parent who breaks generational cycles that no one even knew existed. The person with chronic illness who gets out of bed despite the pain nobody else can see. The neurodivergent who spends every day translating a world that wasn't built for them. The survivor who keeps choosing to love even after being mentally, emotionally, and even physically abused. Strength often looks ordinary from the outside. That's why it's so easy to miss. Social media has made this even harder. We live in a world where people can carefully curate moments instead of complete stories. A promotion becomes a post. Graduation becomes a photo. A successful business becomes a highlight reel. A happy family becomes a smiling picture. And before long, we start comparing our behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's curated, polished trailer. But here's the thing. Most people aren't hiding their struggles because they're fake. They're hiding them because they're surviving, because they're still healing, because they don't want pity. I don't want pity. Most of the strongest people I know don't want pity either. What they want is what I felt in that psychiatrist's office: recognition, understanding, to have someone look beyond the outcome and acknowledge the effort, to recognize that the person who appears confident may have fought like hell to get there, and the person who seems intelligent may have used that intelligence to survive battles nobody ever saw. The person who looks strong may be simply carrying a weight that they've learned to carry so well. Social media often teaches us to admire the speed of the runner, the accomplishments, the milestones, the finish lines. But very rarely do we stop and ask what invisible situation might be chasing them. What loss, trauma, what fear, what responsibility, what adversity taught them to run in the first place. And maybe that's why so many people feel unseen. Everybody notices the outcome of the race, while very few people acknowledge the miles and hurdles along the way. Maybe that's why the psychiatrist's comment hit me so hard. For a moment, someone wasn't looking at where I ended up. They were acknowledging the tools I had to use to get there. And that recognition felt surprisingly healing, not because it made me special, but because it reminded me that our unseen strength matters, even when nobody notices them. So today, I want to ask you something. What strength are you carrying that nobody sees? What part of your story that helped you survive but rarely gets acknowledged? Maybe your greatest strength isn't the thing people praise. Maybe it's the thing that they never noticed. The quiet courage, the persistence, the adaptability, the determination to keep going, the willingness to get back up one more time. And if nobody has told you lately, that strength counts. It matters. You matter. The reason this topic matters so much to me is because I recognize it in myself. That psychiatrist comment forced me to look at my own life a little differently, not through the lens of accomplishment, not through the lens of productivity, but through the lens of survival. I started this year confronting a belief that I had carried for most of my life, that my value came from what I could do for other people, that I was only as good as my service, my usefulness, and my accomplishments. I spent so much of my adult life believing that if I couldn't provide value, people wouldn't accept or want me. And I'm beginning to understand things a little bit differently. My accomplishments, just like yours, were built on countless strengths that often go unnoticed. For some people, that strength is simply getting out of bed in the morning. For others, it's becoming the scholar, the caretaker, the provider, the protector that they needed to be in order to earn their place in the world. Whatever you have battled to get where you are today, I want you to know something, that I am proud of you, and I am grateful that you didn't give up. But before we part ways, I want you to consider this. What strength do you possess that you feel doesn't get acknowledged? And what adaptation became so normal that even you stopped noticing it? Maybe the thing you're hardest on yourself for is the very thing that helped you survive. Maybe the thing you've spent years trying to hide is evidence of just how hard you fought. And maybe being seen isn't about having people admire your accomplishments. Maybe it's about having someone recognize what it took to get there, even if that person is yourself.